Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the BookChanging podcast. My name is Tanner, the founder of BookChanging, and I'm brought to you with my co-host today, Mike. Say what's up to the people, Mike.
How's it going, guys?
All right, and today we're doing a book review of The Professor in the Cage by Jonathan Gottschall. I found this book from Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan recommended it. And the subtitle of the book is Why Men Fight and Why We Like to Watch. And that was a really, grabbing title. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it'd be an interesting book. And since Joe Rogan recommends it, I thought that it would be a good read. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. I really liked it. And I wanted to bring Mike on today because Mike is an MMA fighter, my good friend and an MMA fighter. And I wanted to hear your thoughts and perspectives of, what you thought of the book, what you thought of his experiences, and how they related to your experiences. So it'll be interesting as we get into it. So how long have you done MMA?
I've been training MMA for 3 years now, and then fighting for the past year and a half.
Okay, so about a year and a half real fights. So how many fights have you had, and what is your record currently?
I've been in 4 fights, and I'm 3-1. I just lost my last fight.
Okay, and I thought that would be an interesting perspective. We'll talk about that later in the podcast, about what that first fight was like, what it's like to get a win, and what it's like to lose in the cage, which is experiences that he discusses in the book as well. So we'll get into that later. But to start off the book, the concept of why men fight or join MMA, I thought this was a really interesting thing that the author discussed, because for people that don't know, I joined jiu-jitsu because of Mike.
Right,
I was inspired by Jocko Willink. He wrote a book talking about, the necessary element to defend yourself in some sort of way. And I thought that it would just be a good challenge to join jiu-jitsu. And then you got me into it. But I thought it was a very interesting thought process that he discusses. And you as an MMA fighter, I'm sure you went through the same thought process. So
actually, much of what he went through and talked about was word for word exactly how I would describe my experience joining a gym.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought it was interesting. It related back to another book I read that talks about the question that all men have, which is, am I enough? And do I have what it takes? These are questions within every man's core. And we all go do things to answer that, whether it's with women or fighting or, sports, whatever it is. It's am I enough? Do I have what it takes? Am I a man? That question keeps reoccurring, and I thought that was an interesting concept that's portrayed in this book as well. And he says that on page 4 and 5, he said, I wanted to fight because I'd always admired physical courage, and yet I'd never done a brave thing. I wanted to fight, I suppose, for the one main reason men have always fought, to discover if I was a coward.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, so what did you think about that as far as, your reason for getting into fighting?
That's exactly, honestly, a main motivator for me, because I had never done any kind of contact sport, really. I mean, I played baseball, but in high school I didn't wrestle, I didn't play football or anything like that. So getting into fighting was very much can I do this? And then once I discovered that I could, or that it really wasn't, the hardest part is just starting and getting in there,
100%. I remember those same feelings when I was talking to you about going to the gym. I was like, man, I've never done anything like what do you even wear? I've never done anything like this, and it's just a bunch of nerves. And I only did jiu-jitsu. I wasn't going to the MMA classes at the time. So yeah, definitely, it's my main reason for getting into jiu-jitsu is can I hold my own in that sector? Can I man versus man combat type of thing,
right, yeah.
So I really love that quote, and that's cool that you felt the same way. And one of the main realizations of the author in the book was, he said, I set out to write a book about the darkness in men, but I ended up with a book about how men keep the darkness in check. And I thought that was an incredible, way of putting it, because, and I really wanted to discuss this with you, because when I was doing jiu-jitsu, one thing that I was expecting was more confidence. And I got it, but it came in a way that I wasn't expecting. It was when you do jiu-jitsu, it kind of calms you down. It gives you a subtle confidence where you're not really worried about a physical confrontation. Yeah. And I wasn't even doing MMA. So like, do you have that? Do you feel that subtle confidence that's just like calming?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm very non-confrontational, honestly. So if like a situation arises, before I started, I would like try to get out of it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But now it's giving me the confidence to kind of like test the waters a little bit. So if I'm in a conflicting situation, I'm not like immediately looking for a way out. I'm kind of like, let's see where this goes.
You
Like
ride
I'm not
it
trying to
out?
push for a fight, but I'm
Yeah.
like, if it happens, like,
You're good.
yeah, I know that I've got my own back.
It's that subtle confidence. I think that's the main reason that people should get into jiu-jitsu or MMA or boxing or whatever. It's just like, just driving around. Like, I remember driving home from like a jiu-jitsu, and I'm just like so mellowed out after.
Yeah.
Because we just exerted so much, and you're wrestling like, and afterwards you're just cool. Like,
Yeah.
that was an incredible effect, and I thought that was cool that he felt that as well. Like, keep the darkness in check. It doesn't make you more aggressive. It actually kind of has the opposite.
Mellows
effect.
you out a little bit.
Yeah. So that's cool. And another thing that I really loved is like he got into it right away is the concept of the monkey dance and dueling.
Yeah.
I thought that
really
was
cool.
really interesting how he went into the history of men like dueling and having duels. And I also thought it was cool how he mentioned the decline of the importance of honor in our generation. I thought that was really cool because it's like in our generation, in our society today, I feel like it's character is not like on the forefront. Like a strong character is not as revered as it once was.
Right, yeah.
And he says that with honor, and it's the same thing, honor and character. He mentions in the 1800s, men would risk their lives in a duel for a petty insult.
Yeah.
And he gave an example of a funny insult. It's just like today that's a joke. Like it's not even an insult, but men would literally risk their lives in a duel back in the day for that. And he says their honor was all important to their ability to feed their family, buy property, or find a job. It was like if you weren't well respected, somebody wouldn't give you a job. They would basically outcast you from society if you didn't have a high honor. And this same concept is seen in prisons today. There's not much other than your honor and respect that you have in a prison, and so it's kind of heightened. But he says with the rise of laws and the justice system came the decline of the importance of defending your honor, and I think that's unfortunate. I think that in the MMA community, it's all about respect and honor, and
definitely respect.
in the gym that we go to is called Strength and Honor, right?
Strength and honor. There you go.
It's all about respecting each other and having that code of honor, right? So I think that's a really cool way to kind of revitalize that and bring back that honor, and just live like with a moral compass and a set of character, you know? So I thought that was really cool. The duel, like, in the monkey dance, like men have always had this kind of monkey dance, this duel of like, man versus man.
Yeah, I thought the dueling was really cool because they said, like, you can't back down from that. Backing down was worse than dying. Like,
yeah. And he gives the
is
example of
crazy.
somebody that killed themselves.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to like face the duel, like, and he didn't want to run from the duel. So the easiest way out, just kill himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really interesting part of the book, and I think that alone is like warranted to read the book. Like that was really cool to me. And then we discussed the author's fear of fear itself in terms of stepping into the cage, and he says, "My big fear wasn't of a concussion or a broken nose or a torn knee. My central fear was of fear itself. What if I panicked inside the cage and refused to climb up the stairs? What if I unconvincingly faked a last-minute injury? What if once the fight started I turned and ran? What if, in short, I showed myself to be a coward?" And I thought that was very interesting. The fear of fear itself.
It's very true too. Like
I'd imagine that's something you go through, right?
Before every fight, I mean, definitely my first one, but even my last one, I was sitting there thinking like, man, this is a fight. I'm gonna fight another man right now.
Yeah. Talk about that experience. I really want to talk about the fear or the emotions that you felt when stepping into the cage the first time, your first fight.
My first time was it was a lot of pressure because it was my first fight, and then I was facing an opponent who wasn't debuting. Like, this was my very first fight. He was 8-5, He was on a 4-fight win streak.
Wow.
And it was for a championship belt too. So it was just like, I should not have been there at all. And even the promoters had told me that, but they had already given me the fight, and I told them it was kind of unfair for them to try to take it back.
Yeah.
I'd already cut all that weight and everything.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of said, all right, like, we'll see how it goes. And no, I don't know what the expectation was of me. I don't think they thought I was going to win. But I came out with a split decision in that one. But leading up to it, I was very nervous. I was trying to just stay as calm as possible, and I could tell my coach was like, he knew that I was just like sweating bullets over there. And it's just a lot of adrenaline and a lot of emotions going through your head of exactly what he said, of not wanting to be a coward. Like, you want to get in there and you want to fight because you know at this point you got something to prove. You're good at it, or you're good enough to be in the cage.
Yep.
But also, man, this guy is too. And like
yeah, and he's well vetted. The guy that you faced, that's crazy. So did the adrenaline almost, like, I'd imagine the week before, the 2 weeks before would be worse, right, than the night of, because of the adrenaline? Or is it not that case? Is it
it's usually the week of is like the longest week, because you're still cutting weight, and you're still training, not as hard, but like it's all building up now.
Yeah.
And then the night of, I'm usually so tired from cutting weight or from traveling to wherever we're at that I knock out. And then the most probably anxious I get is when like I hear my like walkout song come on, and then I'm like, okay, like now everyone's looking at me, not me and him, not, you know, the cage. It's all on me right now, and you're walking out. But once I get in the cage, it kind of just goes away. It's weird how just accepting your mind becomes of it. Like everything is super, super nervous, and everything's telling you like, don't get in there. And then once you are, it's like, well, never mind. Like, you're here. Like,
there's no going back now. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I throughout reading this, I was like, I can't wait to talk to you about that, 'cause that's one of the most, you know, it's not too many people that have stepped into a cage and fought somebody, you know, like, so that's an interesting perspective. And another concept I really liked is he talks about, why do men fight? All the suffering of training in MMA. The author endured 15 months for a 45-second fight.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil how it ends, but you know, he says, why? Like, why do we endure this? Why do men like to fight? Why do they go through all of this struggle? And he says, because on the other side of this suffering is an immense amount of joy as well as confidence. And so, did you have anything to speak to that? You know, why do you put up with the long hours of training and you broke your nose? Right? Like, why do you put up with these things?
Yeah, like he said, it's an immense amount of joy, and also self-esteem and confidence boost. Like, you did that. I mean, you have your coach and you have your team behind you, but at the end of the day, it's your hand getting raised. It's all that work that you put in, that, I mean, only you asked of yourself. No one else asked you to do it, you know?
Yep.
And so that's the main reason that I do it, is I really like how it feels getting your hand raised, how it feels knowing what you've accomplished, and just being able to perform and show that this is what you've got.
Yeah. So it's all that work that you put in, and it pays off.
Exactly.
It's that immense feeling. And then to close, he talks about on page 180 how to avoid war. And he says, are sports a way of preparing for war or a way of avoiding it? I think the answer is both. For most of human history, sports played a clear role in honing armed and unarmed combat skills, in building strength, stamina, teamwork, and warrior toughness. But it's a paradox. Sports were preparation for war, which made war less likely. And so I wanted to ask, you know, how do you feel about war or a fight being less likely due to your MMA training? I found this to be true with my gained confidence, like I mentioned earlier. My worries of like a fight evaporated, like completely cool. So what do you feel like on that?
I definitely agree with that. I've actually never even been in a street fight, and I think that's because of just training in MMA. How you hold yourself is a lot different. And then also, I mean, most people know me as an MMA fighter by now, and so no one really wants to pick fights with me.
Yeah.
But even if like someone who didn't know me, we got into like had some beef or whatever. It's just knowing what to say and how to hold yourself to really not escalate the situation to the point where you need to fight. I've never been in a situation where like I was like, okay, like I'm gonna have to swing on this guy or anything like that.
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
never
yeah.
been it's never gone to that. And I think that's because I've been practicing and because of the people I train with and everything.
Yeah. I love it. And as you get cauliflowered ears, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna pick a fight with you, huh?
I don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to go over, and those are the reasons I think that people should pick up this book. You know, it's a very interesting perspective. He's a professor, who
he's
picked
like
up
40
MMA,
years old.
40 years old when he started doing MMA, started training, and he went through, you know, like I said, 15 months for a 45-second fight.
Yeah.
But he proved to himself that he could do it, and he was man enough to do it, and I think that that's powerful. And I think that, you know, these are reasons that everybody should get into like MMA or jiu-jitsu.
Or just some form of martial arts, honestly.
Confidence building, confidence inspiring for sure.
Yeah.
And so I thank you all for tuning in to another episode. Mike, I thank you for coming out and doing this with me.
This was fun, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Have a good one.